Welcome to Founders Future, a podcast powered by Closers.io, where we dive into the journeys of innovative entrepreneurs and explore the road ahead of them and their companies. I'm your host, Olivia Salmons, and in each episode, we'll uncover the stories behind impactful ventures, the challenges faced along the way, and the strategies driving their future growth. Today, we're joined by Erik Burglund, founder of the Language of Leadership, a coaching and training consultancy helping leaders communicate clearly, confidently, and compassionately. Erik, very warm welcome to Founders Future. Thank you for joining me today.
Thank you for having me. Happy to chat with you.
So with all of my guests, I like to start at the beginning of their journey. So can you maybe take me back to what it was that you was doing before you started up the Language of Leadership? And
Yes.
then what motivated you to start up the company?
Yeah, absolutely. The origin of this story actually takes place in 2016. And I don't know how many people can really connect with this, but I can trace the origin of this company and the pivot in my life into entrepreneurship to one single question that I was asked while I was interviewing for a job. I was a sales leader. I led a sales team in the construction industry for a global manufacturer in the mechanical piping business. I led a team of 16 people across 3 states, and I was doing okay as a leader, but I had one of those moments where I thought I was doing better than I really was, and the grass is obviously going to be greener somewhere else. I'm going to go leverage my leadership success so far into a new company and a new title. That's what I was thinking around 2016. And what
Okay.
happened was I worked my way into this final interview with this company I wanted to go towards, right? They flew me in and here I am thinking I'm going to get the job because they don't fly you in to meet the CEO for no reason. And I got into that interview with the CEO and it was going really well. And then he asked me one simple question that changed everything for me. And the simple question was, how do you hold your people accountable? And he asked it so nonchalantly. He asked it in such a way that it was, you obviously have a natural answer for this. And I had no answer, Olivia. I didn't know. As a leader who'd been in this title of leader for, I don't know, 3 or 4 years at that point, I'd run a business in college, I'd led multiple things, but I had no answer for this guy's simple question of how do you hold somebody accountable? I made something up about I'll follow up with them and yada. I didn't get that job, and I came home absolutely devastated, not because of the job, but because I felt so inauthentic. I don't know if you ever felt a moment like that where
Yeah.
you like feel like the rug's been swept out from underneath you or you're revealed as a fraud. That's
Mm,
exactly what I felt like. How in the world could I call myself a leader and yet have no clearly articulable answer to the very simple question of how do you hold people accountable? And so between 2016 and 2019, I became really obsessed with this. I'd ask everybody I could, how do you hold someone accountable? And what I learned in that process was nobody has an answer. And everybody thinks that chasing people or adult babysitting or being really stern or lecturing, that's what they think accountability is. And I found that really broken. And so accidentally between 2016 and 2019, I built a little curriculum and I started getting better at what do you say when someone doesn't do their job, does it late or does it poorly? And how do you set expectations with those people so you can prevent those moments? And if they
mm,
repeatedly or egregiously violate those expectations, what do you do to escalate it into conflict? And I ended up building the language of leadership accidentally as a struggling sales leader. And what happened was it doubled our results. We literally 2x'd our sales production. And I went from working 80 to 60 to 40 to 20 hours per week over a 3-year window. And by the end of my time there, my team was significantly better at their job. They had grown because I had been holding them accountable. Their talent, their potential had been unlocked. They were solving problems that used to get to me. Now those problems didn't get to me anymore. And so I had an enormous amount of time to embrace the bigger initiatives that I should have been doing the whole time in that role, but could never get to. And the company approached me and said, hey, could you build a basics course to capture this curriculum for us? And we said, sure. And we ran 30 managers through it at the company that I was at, and it went really well. And that's when I realized I don't want to do this sales leadership thing anymore. Like my team is developed enough, they can take my job. I really want to do this language of leadership thing. And the company wasn't ready to make it a job. So I left, started this business, and now that's what we do. We help leaders change what they say and how they say it in these critical conversations that they've never been trained in. There's only 10 of those conversations, by the way. It is a finite number and it is barely 2 hands full of
yeah.
conversations they've never been trained on. And what we do is we help them practice those conversations, not just watch a course. Nobody gets better at something because they watch videos, but we actually make them practice and get feedback on accountability, expectations, conflict, enrollment, all these skills. And when they do that, they grow tremendously like I did. They double their results. They quarter the amount of time and effort. They actually go on vacation. They get all these fun benefits that come out of it. But that's the origin story of the language of leadership.
Very cool. Thank you so much for sharing that. And I feel like often with leaders, obviously, I speak to a lot of founders, people in her positions, and fellow actually leadership coaches. And often you find with leaders, it's something that's thrust upon somebody without them really having the tools or the experience beforehand. Because they was good at their job before, for example, in your sake, you must have been great at sales, top sales guy. So naturally, that next progression is to go into a leadership role, to go into a managerial role
Absolutely.
without having any kind of formal training from there. I really love how you're helping it progress forward. So let's dive into it a little bit more so that listeners can have some more context. Who would you say is your ideal customer? And then off the back of that, how is it that you help them?
Yeah, we started out with an intentional ideal customer and we've stumbled upon a different one. So I'm going to talk about two different groups here, right? Our true ideal client is at a director or VP level inside of a company, or they are a business owner themselves. And what these owners are struggling with is leading through layers. They might
Mm.
have their ability to lead is maybe okay, but where they really start to lose the ability to scale is when they can't lead leaders, when they can't hold people accountable to holding people accountable, because the secondary layer of I don't know how to hold you accountable and you don't know how to hold them accountable really wrecks a company culture. And that's where we really set out to solve for. And the times we find those clients, it goes incredibly because we transform entire organizations' perspectives on accountability and really reorient 30, 60, 90 people in one quarter. And that has a massive impact on businesses. So that's our true ideal client we're trying to find and we have a lot of success with. What we've accidentally found has been a lot of middle managers, those ones who aren't yet at that director level. They haven't been promoted into that role yet. But the exact dynamic you called out, Olivia, I was a good salesperson, so now I'm a sales leader. I was a good marketer, so now I'm a
Yeah.
marketing leader. I was good at IT, so now I'm an IT leader. The reality is, just because you got handed a new job title does not level up your skills that you need to use in those conversations. Most people couldn't even articulate what leadership skills really are. They think it's oration or the ability to cast vision or motivate people. Those are neat and helpful, but those are not leadership skills. They're just beneficial. Leadership skills really come down to what do you say in the moment to influence someone towards an advantage? That's what it means to be a leader. In the difficult moments, how good are you at influencing them? None of these people have ever been trained on it. So our ideal client is that director plus level who we have found we can serve incredibly well. In addition to that, our middle managers who've never been trained, they got promoted maybe yesterday, maybe 30 years ago, but they're still struggling with these 10 conversations because they've never been trained on it before. How do we help them? We help them learn how to navigate those difficult conversations so that they unlock the potential and talent of their team so that their team solves problems instead of bringing them to them, instead of escalating. That unlocks their time to focus on the initiatives or other areas they should be spending time, effort, and energy on, including their home life, vacation, being balanced. Most leaders take too much stuff home and solve too many people's problems. When your people are solving their own problems, you get a lot of your life back.
100%. And that's so important. Time is something that is not often thought about. And even like when you're talking about founders and directors and everything, time is often the one that's overlooked in people's minds when they're talking about a key element of their work life and something that's different. Obviously, all of that is incredible as well moving forward, helping the business, just the whole environment will get so much better. So, how is it that you actually work with people? So, is this on more of a one-to-one level? Do you integrate yourself into a company? What does that side of it look like?
Yeah, great question. We have really three layers to it. The one-on-one is absolutely how I started the business. That was my intention. I wanted to coach leaders one-on-one. And what I found is that's great and I enjoy doing that. But candidly, scaling a business of one-on-one
Yeah.
coaching is very difficult and that isn't that rewarding from a business owner standpoint. I like the times that I do it, but it isn't my primary path. What we really like to do is work with companies. I want to work with you and your group of 5 middle managers and potentially even your group of 60 individual contributors. And we want to build a custom program that levels up all three of those layers. Your individual contributors have never been taught how to be accountable. Take a second to think about it. I don't know your career path, Olivia, but I suspect no one in your professional world ever sat you down and said, okay, Olivia, here's what I mean when I say accountable in my company.
No,
No one's
no.
ever taught you what that word means.
And if I can interject, yeah, the whole
Yeah.
time since you asked that first question, how would you hold somebody accountable? I've
Yeah.
still got an answer in my head, and we've been talking for about 10 minutes now.
I'm happy to give you that on this here, but think about all three layers of this. Your people don't know how to be accountable. That might sound ridiculous to say out loud. But remember, no one's ever taught them before, especially as we get into multi-generational
Yeah.
leadership issues, Gen X, Gen Y, millennial leadership issues. Holy cow, no wonder you struggle. No one's told them. All they think accountability is be perfect or get yelled at.
Yeah.
That's the culture that most companies have, especially in North America. So they don't know how to be accountable, which means every time your middle managers try to hold them accountable, it's friction. They don't even know what the hell they're doing, let alone what they're expected to be doing. So you don't know how to do it at that layer. And you at the tippy top as the owner or executive or VP or whatever, you don't know how to correct that company culture. So our ideal execution, we will overhaul all of that in 90 days by training
Wow.
your individual contributors on how to be accountable and why it's good for them. Not perfection, but being good at it, but being accountable, which will, again, we'll draw the distinction in a second. Your
Yeah.
middle managers starting to hold them accountable, and you at the tippy top actually creating the culture intentionally, emulating and demonstrating what that looks like to your middle managers. That's our preferred execution. What we also do is have individual leaders who jump into our academy programs. That's where they come and they practice this with groups of leaders from around the globe who jump into these calls where me and my head coach, Ali, help you practice these conversations. So, what that would look like, you would jump into a call, Olivia, and let's say the topic of the day was accountability. That's the conversation. Olivia or I would recap. Here's what that means. Here's how it goes. And then we would role play with you. Practice. The only way to get
Oh,
better at anything is to do it in a safe environment and get feedback. You don't get to
yeah.
do that in your leadership job day to day. So you practice it. And I would say, okay, Olivia, Bob didn't do what he was supposed to today. What are you going to say? How do you answer? How do you start the conversation? I don't expect you to know, right? But we would role play with you and help you customize the playbook. We call it a talk track. We would help you customize the talk track so it looks, sounds, and feels authentic to you in your
Love it.
geography, in your industry, in your experience, in your relationships. So that by the time you leave that call, you've done it a couple times. Now
Mm.
you've practiced it with zero consequence. So you're no longer psychologically afraid of the conversation. You're a little bit better at it and you at least know where to start. You do that a couple times with us, and before you know it, you're pretty good at holding people accountable or handling their excuses, whatever it might be. That's our
Amazing. Yeah.
preferred way to do it.
I love the training involved with it as well. As you say, repetition. It's like if you was going to learn how to sell, you would review sales calls. If you was going to go out and if I wanted to go and be a basketball player, I'd review basketball animation and go and learn how to
Well,
play.
you just
Makes
review
so
it,
much
right?
sense.
If all
But
you
you
did
do
was
it.
watch film, you would be like, know how to watch film, but like you have to go stand at the free throw line
Yeah.
a bunch to get really good at it. We
So
know
true.
this is true with physical application for skill. We forget that it's the same process for verbal skills, for leadership skills, for sales skills, whatever it might be.
Yeah.
Would
So
it be
true.
helpful if I told you the answer to the question, how do you hold somebody accountable?
No, I'm going to ask you at the end if that's okay.
Perfect. All right, sounds great.
Love it. I'd already planned it. Amazing. So I do want to dive into the nuts and bolts of the business a little bit, and then we can
Yeah,
move on from there. So you mentioned you obviously have a head coach. So I'm assuming you have a team behind you. Do you have
I
people that
do.
help with marketing? Do you have a sales team?
Great question.
Or
Yeah, so I have an entire marketing agency. They run my whole funnel. We run ads to webinars to drive people into the public facing academy programs. And what happens is a lot of times a COO of a company will come into that program. They randomly found me on Meta or LinkedIn. They'll come into a webinar, they'll get hooked on the idea, they come join the academy for a
Mhm.
quarter, and then they say, "Hey, this is really helpful for me. It's working. Could we do this for my whole company? Can we do that cultural shift
Nice.
thing you talked about?" That's the mechanism most people find this through. We started that way because I didn't want to have to go sell into the L&D environment. It's very competitive. There's a bunch of consultants and coaches. I'd rather prove it with you and then scale it off of that relationship. So that's how somebody would get into the program.
Very cool. And then are
And then,
you
sorry,
running?
so yes, I have a marketing team that runs that. I forgot the core question. I recently hired a head coach who now runs all of my entry level programs. We've ran her through our train the trainer mechanism. So we actually train coaches on this as well. And so ran through that. She now facilitates all of our entry level academy programs and onboarding calls and one on ones and all of those things. And then I have an operations manager who executes all of the SOPs and processes that it takes to make the connective tissue of the business work.
Very cool. So good setup. And I like the process of the leads way coming through, as you say, from the webinar and then working like a short form funnel to the back end and have
Exactly. The idea was a paid top of funnel for
yeah,
somebody to, if we can run that at a slight profit, then we'll unlock the bigger opportunities, which is where our business really grows.
awesome. I love it. And are you running any form of paid ads towards the webinar?
We are,
Current.
yeah. So we have a paid ads budget and we run that every month, and we've been running that funnel for 3 years now.
Amazing. And then so let's switch to the vision for the future. So what do the next 12 months have in store for you?
Yeah, a few different things. I don't want to go too far into it, but we added, so the core purpose of our business, or the core function of our business, is helping you role play to practice these difficult conversations. And back in January, I added AI role play to the language of leadership. And so we went and built what I believe is the world's first AI role play for leadership development. There's a lot of companies that do it for sales development, practice your sales
Hmm.
calls. We built what I think is the world's first AI for leadership development. And so we bolted that on. We offered it to our customers. We quickly sold out of all of our seats. And what happened was people really liked it because they didn't have to meet with us midweek anymore. They could practice this anytime, wherever they wanted in a psychologically safe environment and literally practice with an AI agent that sounds as authentic as anybody else. So you could get the feedback on the skills that you need. So we added that and then we went and sold it to our corporate clients. And they kept saying the same things, Olivia. They said, that's cool. We'll take a few seats and could you please build me that AI role play thing for this and this? And we literally came across 24 different use case requests across different industries. So we launched a second business called Luminary. And that's what we do. We build custom AI role play for soft skill development in niche industry applications. But what's next for the language of leadership is empowering Allie to continually take over more and more of, she's my head coach, to take over more and more of the operations because she's a brilliant leadership coach as well. And she's got a lot to contribute. So we're going to expand the offering of the language of leadership beyond just the what do you say and how do you say it? Because that's really important. But Olivia, a lot of times leaders come to me and they still don't have a central source of truth they run their business off of. They don't have a CRM, a project management tool,
Hmm.
a Notion hub. So they're just going off of hearsay all the time. No matter what you say in those situations, if you don't have a good grounded central source of truth or organizational structure, what you say is not going to help that much. So Allie brings a lot to the organizational and mindset side of the business that really needs to be there. So I'm going to continue to empower her to take over more and contribute to that side of it. We're also going to launch a train the trainer program. We've done it, but officially launching if you're a coach and you want another skill you could monetize with your clients, or you want a reason to get them to re-sign for another year or 2 years, or you want a corporate offering that you could scale your individual relationships
Hmm.
off of using the language of leadership platform and documents and processes and learning that process over 90 days and developing an annual relationship with us. That's an initiative that we're going to launch as well.
Very cool. So helping other people to move on and do the same thing. And then in terms of the rest of the team, is there a specific like revenue target or client target that you're looking to hit over the next 12 months to push forward the scale?
It's a really good question. Because we launched all of this in the last 6 months, we launched Luminary early this year, and I hired the team to back it. And I haven't sat down and fully mapped really what is the revenue target for the language of leadership. But I do know that we really need to get it up to about 50 grand in MRR in order
Okay.
for us to feel good on our ROI for our return on our ad spend.
Yeah.
And so getting up to that 50K MRR puts us in a position where the paid top of funnel concept is sufficient to pay everybody and give us a marginal return so that when we hit some of the bigger deals, that's where we make our profit. That's a stable position for us to pursue. And that's the next meaningful milestone.
Awesome. I love that. And then, Eric, my final question to you, you might already know what it is, but what is accountability? How
Question.
do there we go.
Great question. So there's a two-part answer because what I find is if I try to answer the question of how do you hold someone accountable without teaching somebody what it means to be accountable, it doesn't help because you just never experienced it before. So here's what it means to be accountable. And this is probably the first time the audience members are hearing this definition of it, but I have never come across a better definition of what we think accountability really means. Here's what it means. Most people think accountability means to do what you say you're going to do. Meaning, if one of your employees came up to you and said, don't worry, Olivia, I'll be accountable to this one, what you would hear is, I'm going to do it correctly and on time. That's perfection. That's what we think we're hearing when somebody uses this word, but that's not what it means at all. Accountability kicks in when someone fails. So, what it means to be accountable is sure, do the thing you said you would do. Please start in that direction. But when you can't, you need to do these three things. You need to proactively communicate to stakeholders. That's step one of being accountable. Step two is you need to self diagnose and reflect on your ownership of what went wrong. Look in the
Mhm.
mirror, figure out what your own. It's not always 100% you, that's fine. But what part do you own of the failure? And step three is to solve for the future. That's what it means to be accountable. So, an example of that would be if I owed you some work product by Friday, who cares what it is, a report, a closed deal, a new operations line, whatever your industry work product is. If I owe you that Friday and I know today There's no chance you're going to get that. For whatever reason, right? Maybe I can forecast my workload. Maybe my team's sick. Who the heck knows what the cause is? If
Yeah.
I'm aware you're not going to get it on time, I'm going to tell you. And I'm going to say, Olivia, I'm so sorry. I'm not going to be able to hit that deadline Friday. And if I did that, you would have a natural question. How come? Me, being an accountable employee, know that that's an obvious question. So how come? Why is it I'm unable to hit the deadline? I didn't plan accordingly. I thought it was going to take 2 hours. It's taking 5, or whatever the reason is. Looking in the mirror is what you, the leader, would have expected of me in that moment when you ask the how come question. So I'm going to proactively do that. And you're going to wonder as the leader, what are you going to do to make sure you don't screw that up again next time, man? Like, how do you not make the same mistake? So again,
Mm.
that third step of solve for the future. That's what it means to be fully accountable. So with that definition in mind, now you've created agency for your individual contributors. This is what I mean when we say if you train your employees to be accountable, what happens is they don't magically get better at perfection, but they do start telling you ahead of time when they're not going to miss a deadline. And they do
Yeah.
start looking in the mirror and going, I'm pretty bad at time management. And that's what consistently is holding me back here. So what I'm going to do is, and they start solving for the future. And when you have a whole company that does that, you unlock potential and talent, and so many powerful things happen because they know what it means to be accountable. And so,
Yeah.
with that definition, now we can think, what the heck does it mean to hold somebody accountable? To hold somebody accountable is to make them live through that process. So if you work for me, Olivia, and you come up to me and say, sorry, Eric, I didn't hit the deadline. My very first question to you is, Olivia, when did you realize you weren't going to be able to hit the deadline? Because what I want you to do in your mind is to start identifying the moment when you could have proactively communicated with me. My first question to you is tied to the first thing I want you to do to be accountable. I want to condition you, Olivia, that every time you screw up in my company, the first thing you'll hear from me is, when did you realize that was going to happen? Sometimes it's right now, right? Let's be honest.
Yeah.
Failure happens in the moment all the time. Sometimes we forget about stuff. We have a ton of grace for that. But if it's anything other than right now, there was a moment when you could have proactively communicated to me and have been accountable, even if it was last night at 2 a.m. when you woke up and thought about it. So that's the first step. The second step is to help you think through your part of ownership in that. And so it's now that you've thought about it a little bit, what do you think really broke down? Where did your process break down? Maybe it's a
Mm.
process gap. Maybe it's a skill gap. Maybe it's a relationship gap. There's a bunch of things, but I want to condition you to reflect a little bit and own your portion of it. That doesn't mean I'm pointing fingers, but we got to own some of it. And then I'm going to ask you, what could you do to make sure you're better at that next time? How do you make sure that doesn't hold you back in the future? Now, bonus, maybe I can say, okay, Olivia, now that you've told me you suck at working with IT and you need to go spend 5 hours with IT, could you go do that now to get this thing done? Maybe I can reassign the work and still have you finish it. Sometimes the work product is expired. I led salespeople. I couldn't say, go hit your quota now that you've learned how to do it. But that's the process for holding people accountable. And there's two pieces I want to add to it. One, it's all about conditioning people to be more accountable in the future. Yes, the acute situation matters. Yes, I want the work product finished or the deadline hit or whatever. But we lead people. We develop talent. Our job is to cultivate relationships that unlock the potential of the people we've been handed the responsibility of ushering into their professional careers. I want you better next time, Olivia. That's what it means to hold you accountable, to have a conversation about that. And two, if you think back or you listen back or if you click rewind as you're listening to this, pay attention to the tonality I'm using when I'm asking you these questions. I asked you the question, Olivia, when did you realize you weren't going to be able to get that done? What I didn't say was, Olivia, when did you realize you weren't going to get it done? Those are the same words, but the tonality, the body language, the volume, this is what it means to be a great leader is you are intentional with the use of all of the tools that you have at your disposal to unlock that potential of your people. You can't
Mm.
do that if you're constantly raising your voice or using downward tones or wagging the finger. You have extra signals and enhancers in communication you can use. Those are the types of things we help people with the language of leadership practice so they do it intentionally. Long-winded answer, but that's what it means.
Very cool. So accountability done well is productivity, pretty much, because
It
you're
is
preventing.
productivity combined with growth.
There we go.
I'm
Yeah.
very interested in both
Love
of
it.
those. The reason we hold people accountable, I usually say this to people in the accountable. Why do we hold people accountable? Why do we care about this? Because we got to get stuff done, number one. And 1B is I really want you to get better at your job. I really don't
Yeah.
want the same mistakes repeated again and again. That's what we call talent development. And those things go hand in hand. If you're good at holding people accountable, each and every time they don't do their job, do it later, do it.
Amazing. And Eric, thank you so much for joining me today and for sharing
Thanks
your
for having me.
incredible insight with us. Where can people reach out to work with you, connect with you, if they would like to do?
Yeah, great question. You can find a ton of resources on our website, languageofleadership.io, including finding free webinars, free ebooks, upcoming talks, things along those lines. You can also reach me on LinkedIn very easily. It's just Erik Burglund. I'm sure Olivia will have notes or a link in the show notes there. Those are the best ways.
Awesome, amazing. Thank you so much again. And to our listeners, if you enjoyed this episode, please do not forget to subscribe to Founders Future via wherever you listen to your favorite podcasts. And if you are a business owner, specifically a coach, consultant, or agency owner, and you are really looking to scale your business and you want to enhance your sales and marketing efforts, visit closers.io to hop on a call with one of our team and discover how we went from $0 to $30 million per year in those 3 years. But until then, keep climbing and we will see you on the next one.